Sometimes the smallest differences in words can actually point to much bigger differences in real life. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. You've probably heard both terms before. In true crime documentaries, in news reports, maybe even in casual conversations. And most people use them like they mean the exact same thing. But in reality, they're two very different things in the criminal justice system. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn what's the difference, jail versus prison, right here on History of Simple Things. Let's start with very simple definitions. Both jails and prisons are places where people are locked up, but they're designed for different kinds of offenders and built to serve different purposes. A jail, in the most basic sense, is usually a short-term facility. It's where people go either while they're waiting for a trial or serving a very short sentence, usually less than a year. Jails are often operated by local authorities, like a city or county government, and run by your local sheriff's office. A prison, on the other hand, is a long-term facility that's meant for people who have already been convicted of a crime and who are serving longer sentences. Prisons are typically run by state or federal governments. These places are made for people who will be staying for years, sometimes decades. So simply put, jail equals short-term or pre-trial, prison equals long-term or post-conviction. Let's go a bit deeper into the idea of jail. Imagine someone gets arrested for, let's say, a DUI or burglary. They'll probably be taken to a local jail and they stay there until their court date. If they can post bail, they might be released until that date. If not, they remain in jail. You can also end up in jail if you're convicted of a minor offense, something like petty theft or disturbing the peace, and the judge gives you a sentence of less than 12 months. A lot of people in jail actually haven't been convicted yet. They're just waiting for their chance to stand in front of a judge and prove their case. So in many ways, jail is like a temporary holding station. It's not meant for long-term rehabilitation or long stays. There usually isn't much in terms of programs, classes, or structured activities. It's mostly about holding people until the next legal step. Now let's compare that to prison. When someone has gone through the entire court process, arrest, trial, conviction, and sentencing, they'll go to prison if the sentence is longer than a year. This could be for crimes ranging from armed robbery to drug trafficking to homicide. Prisons are built with the idea that people will be there for a long time, so they typically provide more structured environments. Many prisons will have education programs, job training, counseling services, and recreational activities. That's because the goal isn't just to hold a person. It's also to manage them for years in the hope that someday they can re-enter society in a better way. Another key difference is the security level. Prisons are divided into different categories like minimum, medium, or maximum security depending on the crime and the perceived risk of the inmate. A person convicted of tax fraud might go to a low-security facility, while an individual convicted of murder would end up in a maximum security prison. One big difference a lot of people don't think about is the day-to-day life inside each one. Life in jail tends to be very repetitive and a bit chaotic. People are constantly coming and going. New arrests happen every day. People bond out. Others get transferred to court. And some get moved to prison after sentencing. That constant movement means jails aren't as structured. There's less stability and usually fewer services for the people staying there. Life in prison is usually more routine. Because people are there for a long time, The schedules are more set. Inmates might wake up at a specific hour, have meals at set times, go to a work assignment or attend classes, and then return to their housing unit. It's not exactly pleasant, of course. It's still incarceration, but it is generally more organized compared to jail, simply because the system is designed for long-term stays. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth pointing out again. Jails are typically run by local law enforcement, such as county sheriffs or city police departments. That's why different counties may have totally different types of jails. It depends on what the local government has built and how well it's funded. Prisons are run by state or federal departments of corrections. They operate under broader laws and regulations. That's one reason prisons often look similar across different states. They have standard rules and procedures. The Federal Bureau of Prisons, for example, has its own guidelines for how every federal facility should operate. You might be wondering, okay, but why does this difference even matter? It matters for a couple of reasons. First, it affects the rights and status of the person being held. Someone in jail is often still considered legally innocent until proven guilty. That changes how they're treated in the legal system. Second, understanding the difference helps you better interpret the news. When you hear that someone has been put in jail, it often means they're still waiting on the legal process. When someone gets sentenced to prison, it means the process is over and they've been found guilty. Finally, it matters from a social perspective. Jail is usually a short, intense disruption in someone's life. Prison is a long-term loss of freedom that has months, years, or decades of consequences. So to quickly recap, jails are short-term holding facilities usually run by local authorities and often used for people awaiting trial or serving sentences of less than a year. Prisons are long-term facilities run by state or federal governments where people serve longer sentences after being convicted. They might seem similar on the surface, and yes, both involve the loss of personal freedom. But the goals, conditions, and structures of these places are completely different. Understanding that difference gives you a clearer picture of how the criminal justice system actually works. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.